maintainers meeting, perhaps changing around, so this kind of fits in with an agenda point. But let's
But the thing is, if you got a calendar invite with a meeting room that's potentially ephemerally open, like people can drop into it. If it's calendar invite, people can propose different times for the weeks. We're honestly not fixed around this time, Josh. So we kind of just put a finger in the air and said 12 o'clock and see what would happen. We've been lucky to get Tien. What time is it where you are, Tien, at the moment?
6 p.m.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah. That's quite good. Right.
They're pretty close. You guys are pretty close in time zone to us, just a few hours behind.
Okay. Yeah, so let's introduce Josh.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah. Hi, so I'm Josh. So I'm a new hire with Smart Bay. I've just been onboarded now a week and 3 days ago now. Yeah, it's been a great little start. I've had my first PR now, like on there, so you can actually have a look at that. To give you a bit of background on my on me as well. So I've been hired as a software engineer with Smart Bay. For the past year, I was actually working with KPMG in the data and cloud team, more so in like the data engineering and cloud infrastructure kind of setting up, and also kind of set up also for them this kind of Python accelerator that helps kind of deploy cloud infrastructure in a more modular, configurable way with like all the necessary like pre-deployment things you need to do and the post-deployment things you need to do along with the actual deployment. So that's the past year. And then before that, my career has been in academia. So before joining KPMG, I was doing a PhD in theoretical particle physics, and then the master's, and then the bachelor and all that. And I have taken that academic career in a very programming heavy focus. Most of my PhD was actually spent coding up in a Rust library to solve what they call Boltzmann equations. And so Boltzmann equations are used to calculate interaction rates between various things. In this particular case, I was using those interaction rates to calculate the number density of particles in the very early universe and see how that like creates a matter-antimatter asymmetry in today's world. So that's like my background there. And so yeah,
that's a perfect background for working on API tooling.
But like for me, it's like I love just like getting a problem and just trying to solve it. And so that's whether it's like solving why we have more matter than antimatter, or whether it is solving like how to deploy things in the cloud for KPMG, or whether it is like implementing like the V4 Pact for Python. Like I don't mind, as long as I get into a problem, I will like I'll just get into it and solve it, and like yeah.
Amazing. Gosh,
yeah.
That's a really interesting background.
If you've solved some of those hard problems, like hopefully the Pact Python stuff will be a walk in the park for you.
I know.
You'll be like, your Pact stuff is even harder than theoretical particle physics, and we'll be like, oh my god, like.
Yeah.
Well, if I control this, theoretical particle physics is mostly documented. Or at least, quantum
theory. Actually, physics is not documented.
No,
coding, anything to do with code in physics is not documented. You have hard-coded hidden variables somewhere hidden in the code. You have no idea where. And like, yeah,
we'll just come up with a Planck constant, and that'll fix things, right? Just put a constant.
Yes. Yes, let's set it to 0, and then everything's fine. You get rid of quantum mechanics, anything like, yeah.
Funny. Well, yeah, we're very excited to have you. Obviously Josh has given us a bit of a rundown of his background, but the plan we had for him was to sort of get stuck in a Pact Python, which is obviously one of our primary languages that it's fair to say it's still stuck in the past. It's stuck on the Ruby implementation, and Yousaf's done a great job of connecting it to FFI and building on the work of Tien and everyone else who's work through the FFI, and so hopefully that he'll have more of a chance of getting through it. And once Python's up to speed, using that experience to look at the contributor guide, the maintainer guide, whether we've drafted that table of contents, and use that experience to flesh that out as he goes through it, and also the compatibility suite. So rather than rush out feature, it's like let's take the time, do it well, and maybe at the end of this, Python will actually be moved to the top in terms of one of the better documented projects, because it uses the compatibility suite. It's recently upgraded and all of that. So every project gets their time in the sun, and hopefully Python will rise to the top for at least a period of time. So,
I think what's interesting as well for me, Josh's journey into Pact Python and kind of implementing the FFI, I think will be quite similar to yours, Tien. In the fact that you were quite new to the Pact framework, and you chose to work on the Pact PHP and introduce the FFI to that, and you've kind of seen some of the snags in doing so. So, and you're still working through it at the moment, and we're still trying to stabilize it to get it to master. So I imagine it's really nice for me to be able to connect you two together today, because I'm sure Josh will probably bounce off you for ideas, and as well you can feel free to ask him anything.
Yeah, that's great.
Curious, do you have any PHP experience, Josh?
The PHP experience I have was from when I was a teenager and had dreams of creating a website. But that was a long time ago.
So I'm super novice with PHP as well. I've used it a couple of times in production just because it's been what they've used, but I wouldn't say I'm au fait with it. Tien's picked up the kind of maintainer work in Pact PHP at the moment. One thing I've found useful is being able to help from a review perspective, more from a what does Pact look like and what does it look like across the different libraries.
Yep.
Tien, I don't know if you want to just say a little hello and a little bit about your background to Josh.
Hi, Josh. I'm Tien. I'm just a normal developer. I work mostly with PHP. Recently, I use Symfony as my main framework to develop a website. I choose PHP because it's the one. I think it's one of the easiest language out there. And I think with your background, I think you can learn PHP in just no time. I work for two companies, and I have been introduced to microservice. And when working with microservice, I saw a lot of problems. For example, how to test, how to deploy it properly. And I have no answer when why working for the employee. So but recently I discovered Pact, and I really like it. And I decided to take a break for almost half year now to improve Pact PHP. So for next time when I work for the next job, I will use Pact. I will introduce and maybe use Pact in my new job to improve my to improve the work.
Get your work in place. How are you doing with finding a job? I think last week you were Were you going for an interview or something?
Not yet. I am improving my CV. Maybe I will send it to so, some company this week. The end of the website.
Awesome.
I like your digital slides. Maybe you should do a digital CV on your website or on your. Is this the home lab you were talking about, Yousaf? Tien,
these slides are being served up from Tien's home lab.
Yeah, that's cool.
Those are really cool slides. Like, yeah.
I recognize the format. Yeah, actually, the black and white actually goes really well. Like, it's actually quite stylish. Yeah, nice. Well, thanks for that.
Awesome.
Thanks for that, guys.
Thanks for that, Tien. Is there anything at the moment? I know you've been doing some work in there. You've got some FFI PRs in for PHP. Is there anything stand out this week that we can help you with, or you're stuck with, or is there anything maybe that we need to have a chat with Ron about that you're blocked by?
Currently, I'm waiting for the issue related to multipath, and then I will create another ticket related to it also. Then I will finalize the multipath in Pact PHP, and then I think we can release another alpha version.
Fantastic. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's this issue.
Sorry, I've just hijacked the stream with the agenda. I hope you don't mind.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Hang on. I think what's going on here?
I'll just ping Ron so he can get his eyes across that for you, Tien.
Am I in the same file as you, or has this been? There's like 36 pages.
I just put an agenda in at the bottom. I don't know which.
Yeah, I'm just looking at
okay.
at yours.
Right, so this is the agenda doc. Right, okay, this is the one that I've been rolling on since we started. So, like,
I go to the top of the page, Matt. I think I've put the 13th at the bottom as well. But
have you? We've got two of these, right? Okay.
I'll get rid of that.
I just put something in because they were dated from the bottom. So the latest one at the bottom.
Oh, that's cool.
It's fine. Oh, good.
I was just confused around looking. I'm like, shit, am I looking at the right thing?
Well, should I switch to another file?
No. This is the right file. There was a duplicate at the bottom. I think when I go in there, I just go to the bottom of the doc and add underneath the previous section.
Right, okay.
I was confused. There's like 36 pages or something. Like, what are all these blank pages? Anyway.
Right, I see. Okay, right.
All good.
Good.
All good.
Good. Well, okay. So, welcome, Josh. I think we've done that. I'm in Edinburgh, by the way, and Yousaf's in Leeds, just outside Leeds. So we're both UK based.
Yep.
So we're in normal time zone working hours at the moment. I guess that you're not, but thank you for making the time to.
All good. It's all good.
Yeah, thank you. So we've only been running these meetings for about a month or so now, and we're just trying to gather a bit of momentum. Tien has been kind to turn up each week, and we've had another couple of people join, but we've not really gathered a big group yet. So we're hoping that perhaps Pactober will influence more people to turn up to maintainers meetings.
It's also summer in the middle of the week, so when we kind of work out timings and that for that work for people, so maybe like videos and stuff would be good.
So I think for today, Matt was wanting to discuss triage, issue triage.
I think that actually came from one of last week's actions as well. Setting up.
Was there actions last week? I don't see the actions from last week.
I don't think I made last week, did I?
We kind of discussed the triage stuff, and then that was rolling into this week. So I remembered about it and kind of went through and started moving some tickets in the triage board. We might want a column for us work, like maintainers working on stuff, or because there's a contributor PR in progress, and maybe we just need a PR in progress.
Okay. Can we?
Because for me, I'd be like, oh, is it a maintainer? Is it contribute? Do we want to differentiate that? I don't necessarily know. But anyway, yeah, started looking at that triage board. One of the other things that was mentioned in the last week's actions, we've not recorded it, was for the Pact FFI, we've not been able to get the Linux ARM64, ARC64 builds going. So I had a quick look at that. I raised an issue in the Pact reference. I think I've managed to get it building natively on Cirrus, but yeah, there is issues with the latest cross. So
yeah, thanks.
Yousaf, can you update the
Awesome.
last week that FFI thing, please? Because if you don't mind, just pop that in that was an action from last week. Thanks. I think we should come back to this in a little bit more depth after I just fly through the quick community things, if that's okay. I think triage will be quite a conversation. Okay. So how do we think about rotating the day of the week for this meeting? I think we should try it.
I know, like I was involved with the Bicep community a little bit from Microsoft thing, and they had a similar community call, and they would just pick a different time of day, and they would just schedule it, and we'll just have to schedule in advance. And
okay, so a different time of day, but the same day each week.
So they were doing it fortnightly for a while, then they switched to monthly, and they would alternate between like an early morning or a late evening for certain time zones. That's it. Well, yeah. So that's what we could do as well, so that if someone can't, like if it's the middle of the night or if it's too early or something, we can rotate a bit. Yeah. Okay.
How about I take this and try and play with a little schedule? Man, I love time zones.
That's the challenge of this thing, right? Yeah.
Oh, I hate yeah, I really, but I'll have a little play with the time zone buddy and try and build up some a schedule. We can look at it next week and see if it makes sense for people, and then just go with that. Because if I'm going to do a Zoom invitation for everybody, then it would be good to kind of align those two. So I'll take that action to try and build a little schedule of rotated dates, times for this meeting. And it just means that some weeks I won't be there, or some weeks Matt won't be there, or other people have to host it. So that's fine. That actually should be the way it goes. Yeah, great. Okay, thanks for suggesting that, Josh.
And it's a good point with the calendar invite, because you can't have this reoccurring. You need to do like a reoccurring monthly one on this date, another monthly one on a slightly different date and time, and we can work through it. But,
I'd rather just, I think what Yousaf said actually about having, well, the Zoom isn't that intelligent. So when I assign a meeting link to that, it'll just always be available, whether, you know, the date change or not. So that's
my only comment with that, though, is we obviously want, I think you made the point about Yousaf before around like a permanently open in Zoom. I think the issue with that is you don't get the recordings of it. So if it's permanently open, it doesn't get, can't be recorded because it never ends. So we just need to think through that scenario. I think that's where separate Zoom links for those different invites. We can take it offline, but
it makes
sense. Maybe recording doesn't matter and no one cares, and we just document notes. Like maybe that's all. Like maybe putting a lot of stock in recording it is not worth it.
I think we should record the special meetings, like, the ones where we've got a bigger group and we're perhaps working through stuff on Miro or doing, But maybe this is interesting to people. You don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at stats, maybe.
Do we want to be starting to put these meetings onto YouTube then? Have we started to do that? Are we going to?
I'm more than happy to organize that. It's not hard. I can create a maintainer, what do you call it?
Channel
and just upload them to the playlist and keep it pretty basic. I wouldn't want to get to the point where there's lots of admin to do this, but I can certainly upload to YouTube pretty easily.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Or wherever we decide, but YouTube's the obvious one.
YouTube, yeah. I think YouTube's very popular. I mean, the API stuff that Frank Commons is doing on YouTube it's popular. People are going there a lot. So apparently shorts are very trendy at the moment on YouTube, the shorts. So, okay. Is your YouTube in SmartBear? Is it part of the SmartBear ecosystem?
I need to go check. I think there is a Pact one. We created a Pact one a long time ago.
All
We
right.
obviously have a Pact Flow one. Pact Flow still exists, but I think this is a Pact one. So I think if we can get it there, we'll just do that.
Great. Okay.
I'm pretty sure there's a Pact one somewhere. I'll check that.
Right. Okay. So you're going to upload those videos, and Joe's going to create a schedule for different meetings. Right. Okay. So quick birthday update for you all. I'm going to check in with the Pactober builders today. So the Pactober builders are people that have replied in the Typeform and told us that they're interested in doing document work or doing bug bashing. So there's a group of, I think, about 7 or 8 of them. And we've opened a channel in Slack, and I'm just going to ping them in there today and try and collect dates that people are together. I think we could do 2 small groups. The general consensus in reply was, yeah, I prefer to work in a smaller group. So I can do that. So I'll just start that conversation with the Pactober builders so we can schedule dates and get that, so we can talk about it and see if other people want to get involved. Okay, socials should start today. I'm going to kind of go offline for a couple of hours after this and just hammer away at the tweet deck and get it on LinkedIn. Saf will put it on LinkedIn. So we'll get.
So just regards to that, we've got a Twitter Pact account called Pact Up. So we'll be posting, we'll be scheduling updates around the event from there. We've got our Pact blog that we'll be posting stuff from. And I've just got, we don't have anything Pact account specific in LinkedIn. So we'll just be sharing the post. So we'll just put an individual post out. So we'll ping when we put out any of the material, we'll put a link in the maintainers channel, and then people can feel free to share it if they want.
Yeah.
We'll also post in our Slack as well, just in the general channel, just to keep people updated.
And then Smart Bear will retweet or sort of share anything that we do organically. So that's good. So it comes as a retweet from them. Or okay, I'm just going to build them for the next 2 weeks at the moment, and then just depending on if there's any change to schedule or shape. So I'll just sort of build up 2 weeks worth. I wondered if there was, so you have spoken to Adam. Do I need to reach out to Adam and do anything for Pactober with him, or?
Maybe it might be worth just pinging him if you're okay with that. I can share the details. He mentioned that you just getting on Slack during the daytime is difficult because it's blocked at his workplace. That's common.
If we've got his email, I've made his email before with just
I can get it from Orbit. Yeah,
that might be better. And if he's up for it, we can always connect as well. Because he's only about 40 minutes away from me.
Okay, so weird question. Would Adam do something instead of Tim?
We can ask. Yeah.
Is he of that caliber?
Yeah. I mean, Adam might want to talk about PactNet, which maybe he wants to do that. So I don't know. We can ask.
Is that sufficient for a birthday event session?
I mean, we can ask him the question and see if he's got anything he's really interested in talking about.
Thank you.
I get the sense he's busy, so I think who knows. But if he doesn't, we'll be able to find something to fill the slot.
Great. Okay. Right. Thank you.
Even if it's not a full session, even if it's like we talk 15 minutes about what's been happening in PactNet and what's planning for the future, what's happening in Pact PHP and present and future, etc. It might just be we get some quick 10-minute snippets from some of the maintainers.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I just don't know Adam's background. Sorry for the questions, but I'm just not sure of him at all.
He's done some pretty sterling engineering work, and he's got some really good insights from how, even if it was something like lessons from a real life Pact maintainer, who's supporting something in production. You're seeing both sides of the fence. You're seeing your Pact code being used in production, but actually you're at the beating heart of being able to control it. And that's quite an interesting place to be. And if we're trying to implore community builders, it's like saying, hey, the best people probably to help build and drive it are the people actually using it. So but I just don't know how much he wants to talk about. So I've not seen many presentations and stuff. So it might just be that we need to coax him into it, and he's got that want to do it. Some people aren't that bothered.
Yeah, well, I'll send him an email and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Awesome.
And any news on Sam Newman?
Yet at the moment, but my
from
overriding thought is that he is just enjoying summer, like most people. Everyone is pretty quiet, generally, because we got loads of like we've mentioned a couple of times that maybe the community meeting hasn't had loads of people. We've not had a full quorum of people. However, prior to kicking off the meetings, Matt did an excellent piece in getting everyone together and working out kind of a bit of a strategy workshop and stuff. And we did get pretty much, cool and gang with it. So my thing is probably just people are away for the summer and that kind of stuff.
All right. So we'll just still assume that Sam is attending, and Sam is.
Did you message him yesterday, Matt?
Sorry, who am I referring to specifically?
Newman.
I thought the outcome of that one was that you were just going to forward the other questions to him.
I have done.
Oh yeah. Okay,
so I have sent him this is what you need to know information for the event. So
that was I going to check in and just say hello, excited or something? Like
maybe just so that you appear. I think he'll pay more attention to your name in his inbox.
Yeah, okay. Right. So sorry, I definitely wrote down the other names.
We need a bit of Matt Fellowes cred, please.
The other thing is I could just drop him a DM or something on Twitter because he's posted on there a couple of times. So.
Okay,
that's cool. I'll just sort of write back because I kind of initiated it. So yeah, all good.
I'm assuming that he's attending as our keynote, so let's hope that's still the case. Also, I just wanted to. I think this is the right thing to do here. We've got a Typeform that I've built to collect people's addresses so that I can send the maintainers and the speakers, the people involved in Pactober, a little gift, some little swaggy things. But there are people that are going to Pactober that are not. So Tien is a perfect example. You're not actually running a workshop on the main event day, but you'll be here, you'll be participating, and you're one of our maintainers. So I'd like to be able to send swag to those people as well. Is it okay to put this Typeform into the maintainers channel?
Yeah, I think it's fine.
People, yep, okay, great. It's just so that we hit the right people that, I don't want anybody to not get it who I think should have it. Oh, great.
Oh.
Good. And that does, we can post internationally, Tien. I have successfully had parcels delivered to faraway places from here. So we've got an excellent customs girl who understands all the forms and codes necessary to get things into the right countries. So I can confidently say we'll get something to you. I will need to ask you to fill out the Typeform. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think that's the administration stuff over. So
do we want to, I know obviously we've gone through the half an hour. Do you want to go through anything else, or do you want to call here and we can cover the rest of it in another session?
Oh, have we only got half an hour? I thought we had 45 minutes.
Maybe I'm wrong. Am I terrible with meetings?
No,
I'm
definitely terrible with meetings, but
sorry, the cucumber meeting's 45. That's why. Sorry.
Is half an hour enough? Do you want to make it like? It's kind of I mean, I'm happy to go for longer. So let's just say that I'm happy to.
Okay, I feel really bad now that I've talked for the full half hour. I feel I'm going to go and disgrace myself for a minute. Right.
I think it's like if it's just 30 minutes, people can drop off if they need to. But then if you've got stuff you want to keep on talking about, there's no reason to drop off.
It's better to keep the rabbit hole stuff for the end is what I think, and I feel a rabbit hole coming on with the triage. So Matt, I don't know if you want to screen share and do anything with that, but I'm just going to mute now, let you get on with the triage discussion.
Okay, happy to talk triage. I think the purpose of these sessions probably is not to solve everything in a session. So given that, especially given we've got some significant voices missing from this conversation, you know, like Adam and Ron and, you know, others, right? There's a bunch. And so, you know, with the issue triaging, I guess the idea is just to sort of make sure people have seen those issues or discussions we've raised, that more detail is required to go in there. Josh actually had some feedback for us when he was sort of scanning through things when he first joined. So I thought it was probably not a bad opportunity to visit it and talk about it. So maybe I'll just quickly screen share and I'll just do the 5-minute pitch. Let me share my screen, which I think is this one here. So I raised a number of, back in August. So I raised a number of kind of issues or discussions. So talking to Yousaf, there's a few meta points here that I'm going to make. So apologies if we're sort of going backwards or reverse inception or something here. But so one of the things that came out of the strategy workshops that we did several months ago, which we have sort of linked there, which I need to put some results up for that. So again, that's with me, was there's a few things, but one of the things we wanted to do was get better visibility and process around getting stuff done. And so in this case, one of the things we wanted to do was basically make sure that contributions that were being made in a very generic sense, whether it's just a comment, whether it's an issue, whether it's a pull request, what have you, being regularly reviewed and responded to in a timely manner. Because like, if you want contributors to build stuff and contribute, then that's great. But if you're not going to support them through that process, then you're going to quickly demotivate that contribution and those contributors. But also, it's quite of a wide estate, right? And we recognize that there is no standard process across the estate of repositories that we've got. Every maintainer kind of does it to themselves. There's no consistent labeling scheme. There is no consistent way of dating things. This kind of borders on roadmaps. Like there's just a bunch of those types of things. And on the one hand, we're actually very transparent with this stuff in terms of what we're working on doing, but we're also not, because it's very hard to actually see what's going on and find it. Sorry, Yousaf?
I think, yeah, the big issue there is end users. They really don't know when they're using something, if the issue is, say, with their client library or with the Pact core, and how much do you want to explain to them about the different projects. We actually just want to kind of drop them in a single place, and we can take that kind of thought process out of it and make sure it goes into the kind of the appropriate bucket.
Exactly.
There's 88, just for context, there's around 88, I think, repos in the Pact Foundation. So it is a reasonable estate to look after.
Yeah. And the third part of this, which relates to a broader thing, what we're calling SmartBear Supported, which is something that SmartBear is running with, which is kind of how we support open source. And I won't get into that tangent here. But one of the things that where it crosses into this section is, well, you know, SmartBear / the Pact Flow team can pick up a lot of open source work and will pick up a lot of open source work. So features or bugs or maintenance or whatever it is. And we're happy to do that. And actually, we need to improve the visibility for the Pact Flow team of maintenance issues across the ecosystem we need to pick up. And so that's one of the objectives of this as well. And it's very hard for us to do that without getting visibility over all the things that are going on and having a process for that. And so all of this is to say that we need a better process for managing issues in a consistent way. And if you also think about it from a contributor's point of view, especially for new ones, if they just come in and go, I want to build Pact Dart, they don't have to go, let me just recreate all these label systems from scratch and build all these automated workflows from scratch and build these triaging, just like, we can take away a lot of that, quote unquote, undifferentiated heavy lifting and get the contributors to focus on actually interesting work as opposed to, busy work. So in here, we've kind of listed, 4 or 5 things that we want to implement to improve our triaging process. That's kind of the spiel about why we're doing it, I suppose, and generally speaking, what it entails includes these things. So one is getting a triage board. Josh had a great example, and it's not in front of me here, so I'll get that up and I'll put it on this issue, or if I'll copy your comments, Josh.
Chat.
Yeah, I'll put those on here because I think this is a good place for it. We've got a board here. I'll just go to it, but this was just looked at elsewhere. We haven't looked at it yet. Like you'll see there's heaps of issues that have gone into it. We're not looking at this board yet. It's still currently, defunct is not the right word, but it's not in action yet. like getting an issue board and defining how that looks. The second one is, what is our process for triaging new issues? How often will we do it? What is our workflow to move those through it? How do we hand off to the maintainers of those projects? And in this point, it's like, can we, the triaging team, that may be SmartBear employees, it might be others, or it might be a combination. How do we help that? We can look at a lot of first issues and be first responders. And again, that might be a really nice, helpful thing, because often you get just, I won't say dumb questions, but you get simple questions like, which I saw one before. So at the end of an issue is like, how do I do provider states? It's like, that has nothing to do with the issue we're talking about. We can provide a service, if you will, to help with that. As part of this, I suppose this is really implementation, but standardizing labels and being able to agree on what they mean will actually really empower this. And as part of that, what I think we'd like to do, we've learned through a series of scenarios in the last few months, is that people might see a label and not know what it means. What we can do is we can automate it, use bots and automation to go, okay, cool. We've now added a SmartBear supported label. That means someone from Packflow is going to pick this up at some point and work on it. It's all going to happen in public, but that's the plan. You can still pick that up and do things up until the point someone says, I'm now working on it, right? So, it doesn't prevent community contributions. It just sort of signals, we're going to do this work, versus something that might be a bug. Well, what does a bug mean? Or, whatever. So you get the idea. The last two, one is around getting a bit more consistent with issue templates, because that's going to increase the quality of bug reports. And again, can we just automate some of this stuff rather than have to have every project think of it themselves? This one's a bit tricky because you might want to ask project specific questions. Like Python's more likely going to ask certain questions about how Python works, and Node.js, for example, is like, did you triple check that there was no promises mishandled? And then it's like the next point is like, no, go back and check, were there no mishandled promises?
But there's definitely some common things like, just which language are you using, which version,
are you using Windows XP still? Like,
100%.
Yeah, we don't support that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the last one, and this is probably more of a something for us to think about, is, do we want to think about SLAs and what that even looks like? And the answer is probably keep it really simple to begin with. And that probably overlaps with the SmartBear supported type stuff as well. So that one, I'm actually on the fence about what we do around that. And maybe we don't do that at all, because we don't want to be putting it on open source maintainers who are volunteers. We don't want to put on volunteers to have to commit to an SLA, obviously. So, what can we do to improve that? But again, the SLA is one of those things that we can just, if you zoom back out and go, okay, I'm some user who's come across this Pact project. And if you saw that we had a good triage board, we had a really clear process for taking in new issues and pull requests and changes, we had a visible roadmap, it was really clear on that process, you would feel confident that project was well managed and was probably going to be a quality piece of software to use, right? And that's kind of a lot of the justification for doing this kind of work. And those steps we think will address that. So
can definitely find some good. I've come across some really good common issue templates and also feature request templates, especially using the new GitHub templates, which actually shows up as a form. As opposed to just like, here's some markdown that you can modify, and people will just like, I don't like it, I'm gonna just add a new header and like change it too much. Whereas you can actually now have things where it actually creates a form for you. And you have like the text boxes, and this is like a markdown. This is like code you can copy paste. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So Yousaf's actually done
awesome,
quite a great thing here. It's unfortunate it doesn't render it.
No,
I thought it did, but anyway, but there's a good example.
I got it from Docusaurus. So like, if you just click on their link, they've got all these 3 things, and they're really good. I think they're really good. So I remember filling out one of these when I wanted to raise a feature request for Docusaurus, and it made me provide them a lot more information. And actually, I ended up writing out quite a strong feature proposal out of it. Whereas before, it would have just been like, is it possible that we can do this thing? And it also asked us like the self-service thing. Would you be willing to fix this bug yourself? So that's like, okay, someone's willing to do this. And actually quite a lot of the time people are.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
quite signaling intent that, okay, maybe they need their hand holding when they're doing that, or maybe they can just roll with it themselves. And
Yeah. And I think that's the other thing with the like labeling, that sometimes you can have an issue with like, yeah, this is an issue we know about, but it's like labeling of the good first issue or the help wanted, where like someone is new to the project and they can, because like I just want to get my feet wet and I don't know.
Yeah.
From like looking at it, it's like, what, this is overwhelming, and they can just filter that. It's like, okay, I know about this little bit, and just pick that they want to.
What if it's part of Pactober? Like we've got a few weeks up until it starts, and we can do it over the course of Pactober, which is just like, we can go through triage a couple of these issues that are outstanding. I mean, there's loads to choose from, and just see which look like good first issues, or maybe tag with like, I don't know, niche triage and Pactober, and they're just, if someone goes through and triages 10 issues during Pactober, we might send them a goodie or something.
So
Kind of gamify it.
Yeah, so we could have office hours for triage sessions, and you and me could just be in the office hours for those, and people could turn up, and we could try and get some momentum.
We can have office hours for them as well, but people can also, you can do this with that idea of Josh, with strong labeling. You can potentially just say, hey, this, because I do like collaboration, but in reality, I just like a bucket of stuff that I could choose from, where I don't have to talk to people, really. I can hack away on my computer, and then I can collaborate with people when I need to. Or some people are different, but yeah, awesome.
Well, you're right. We don't need to talk about it. We just want people to be able to actually pick them up. So good.
What I should say is we're actually at the moment where things are at is I've proof of concept. At the moment, there's actually the standardized labels are actually applied. If you look at our .github project, where is it? And here we actually have a set of shared labels in the workflows. No, I think it's in this templates, maybe. I don't know. It's in here somewhere. No, they're labels. These are the standard labels here, and what the meaning of them are. You can only, they actually have a specific length, but what we can do though is I've got a separate project where I've been proof of concepting or doing pocking things. Or spiking things, where when you apply a label, a bot will detect the label, check for the wording, and depending on what it is, it can lock and unlock issues, it can comment, it can do stuff like that. And I plan on using that to kind of have a dialogue with users to explain in a bit more detail rather than like a sentence. And we don't want to overcook it and make it all too fancy, but fancy enough that when someone is engaging with it and the labels get changed and whatnot, they will be communicated with like a human. And again, I think that's just going to make our triaging much faster. We can just move things between boards, add labels, remove labels as needed, and it will just flow through to the person who's looking at it, as opposed to us having to manipulate 500 repos. And we've got a triage board, which is not, the columns and things haven't been properly sorted, but what I've got though is all of the projects that are in scope for this. If you look at their .github project, there's an action that inherits from the root GitHub project that will automatically add an issue to the board. So surprisingly, our GitHub doesn't let you do that. You can only do it for a single repo. So if you go into like here and set the workflows up, you can say when automatically add to project, but you can only do it for a single project repository. So I think if you buy the enterprise, you can do many, but because we're open source, we don't have that. But anyway, that was really straightforward to add. So pretty much all those projects, if you create any issue or pull requests, it will just magically show up on the board. Sorry. So kind of like proof of concept, all the bits and pieces is more now just agreeing on all the things. What are the labels? What are the things we care about? What are the steps in this process? How do we hand over? When do we do it? I love that idea of maybe we just find a weekly hangout time where we get together, and that's the triage time. Anyone can pop into it and triage with us, and maybe it's you and me, Yousaf, to begin with, and we just get together and get it going. The other next step was I spoke to Yousaf a few weeks ago. I've just not had a chance to get to it, which is bulk import every other open issue into this board and do a mega triage session. Because at the end of that, everything will be labeled nicely. We'll close a bunch of issues that are relevant, whatever it is, right? Like there'll be that kind of thing.
Even if we just say we're not going to do anything else, but for a week we're just going to triage the shit out of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you go to stop in some ways to do some other stuff.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to do the open hour stuff, because I kind of just, whenever I mosey up in the morning, I kind of go into orbit and I do a bit of triage anyway, and quite happy taking people through that thought pattern. And the good thing is, if you're doing that, we kind of do that a bit more openly. It might mean that we're going to try and churn through and triage like 10 issues, whereas if I'm just doing it on my Todd, I'll probably just get I'll just jump into one issue and just go and fix it. And then, I could have actually just triaged 10 issues and allowed 10 builders to go and fix 10 things.
Yeah, that's a really good point, is being able to scale this, right? Is that without going too far down this rabbit hole, the idea of Smart Best Support was we would actually focus our efforts on the most high impact projects. There's 88 repositories or something. I guarantee you there's many of those which are basically used by 2 people or some small number of people. It's like, it's not really worth committing huge resources to those auxiliary projects at the edge of the system. But the core, like, we've got to focus. If we don't get the core right and we focus on the edges, we've probably got it wrong. So initially, the Smart Best supported scope is going to be square on the strategic projects, the core, the broker, those 5 or 6 top languages, a couple of the CLI tools, those kinds of things. And maybe as we get a better grasp on all of this, we can expand that, and we may decommission more projects. The other point is, actually, as part of this process, it was in the previous maintainers channel, I actually did archive a bunch of projects as well that were dead, or at least we decided to kill off. So, anyway, call out from here, because we're not going to solve it right now. Please have a look for the issues. I do need to update the meanings of them all, but hopefully now you have a bit of a sense. If you have any thoughts, ideas, comments, whatever, complaints, jump on the discussion. That was what I was trying to say earlier, is that we're just trying out discussions. We haven't really used it before to make decisions, and we're thinking maybe this is a way to be able to do this. So maintainer meets where we get together, we sort of knowledge share, we might get some ideas, but we don't make decisions without others around. Maybe the discussion boards are a really good place to have asynchronous, come to asynchronous agreements, make it really public and transparent, and it will live on. Zoom, and this is great, but not everyone can make these sessions. Slack isn't great because you would lose the history. So discussions was one option. Creating, GitHub issues obviously is another. And maybe once discussions are done, we move that into a project repository that has, issues or RFC files that basically describe each decision we make as we do it, so it's very, very clear. Because sometimes discussions would be this big gigantic thing, right? And now it's hard to work out what we agreed on, because it's just this big dialogue.
Yeah, that's harder for me to pick up as well if I'm trying to help with that and there's a big discussion dialogue. I'm like, and the point is what?
So we probably need a discussion at some point for how to make decisions, which is something that came in from the sessions. Separate thing. We figured this was this is a really important thing to have a high impact on the community, and we focus this one first. But there's lots of things to do.
Swagger I'm doing all this for Swagger at the moment, so I'm enabling the discussions pages on their top 5 repos, and we're going to start using their discussions pages rather than trying to speak to Swagger people elsewhere. And we're doing the triage board and labeling as well. So there may be, to be honest, I think you're further ahead, and there may be things that Swagger can take from you, but yeah, it's the same story over there. I'm trying to sort of attack their top 5-10 repos and sort them and get templates in place for maintainers as well and contributors. So yeah, good.
That's great. Well, we've gone well over, but hopefully that was useful. Josh, really nice to meet you. Welcome aboard. Tien, nice to see you again, and obviously Yousaf and Joe as always. Thanks for organising it, and we'll chat to you soon.
Right. Yeah, awesome. Okay, thanks a lot. Have a nice evening.
Everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.